And hello guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're starting something new. Something really brand new actually, a brand new series. A series that is going to be in fact a Spitfire Ground School. Now, I know what you're saying. What is this Spitfire Ground School? So this is a series of videos that we're going to be actually going over the iconic Mark 9 Spitfire. In fact, this video we're actually going over the birth of the English legend, and we're basically going over the history, how to start her up, and so on. So guys, if you enjoy these videos, be sure to let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. So let's get started. The Spitfire story had its beginnings long before the Second World War at the aircraft firm of Pemberton Billing Ltd at Woolston, near Southampton, England. Although the company's main line of work was aircraft repair for the Admiralty, it did build a few of its own designs which were noted more for their originality than length of their production runs. Shortly before the First World War ended, the company was renamed as the Supermarine Aviation Works. In 1919, the post of the chief designer was assumed by the talented engineer Reginald Joseph Mitchell at the young age of 24. Mitchell moved to his new job in 1916 when he was 21, and afterwards he managed to advance rapidly in the company. In 1925, the company saw its first design to gain a substantial production order, the twin-engine Southampton reconnaissance flying boat. Eventually, 79 units were built for the Royal Air Force and foreign governments. Supermarine, small racing seaplanes continued their run of success, and during the period from 1927 to 1931, they won a number of racing events. These successes brought a considerable fame to Supermarine Company, but few orders. In the nature of things, the market for high-speed racing seaplanes was extremely limited. Autumn of 1931, the Air Ministry issued the specification F7-30 for a fighter aircraft to replace the aging Bristol Bulldog in Royal Air Force squadrons. The new fighter was have to have highest possible rate of climb, highest possible speed above 15,000 feet, fighting view, maneuverability, capability of easy and rapid production in quantity, and ease of maintenance. It was to be armed with 4 machine guns and would be able to carry 4 20-pound bombs. Any approved engine of British manufacture could be used to power the new fighter. Supermarine's entry to the competition, the Type 224, was a low-winged monoplane of all-metal construction, a considerable novelty at the time. The Type 224 was to be powered by the 660 horsepower Rolls-Royce Goshawk engine, which was the most powerful engine available for this purpose. The Goshawk was designed to work with the newly developed evaporated cooling system, which was promised a much cleaner aerodynamic design that was possible with the older system of external radiators, despite the heat from the engine coolant. With evaporated cooling, the water coolant was pumped through the water jacket around the engine under pressure, so that although the coolant temperature was higher than the normal boiling point of water, steam did not form. As the water emerged from the engine, it was depressurized and the steam immediately formed. The steam was then piped through to a condenser fitted in the leading edge of the wing, where it was condensed back into water and ran to a collector tank before being pumped back to the engine. The Supermarine design was the only monoplane to use the evaporated cooled Goshawk. In its case, the steam condenser ran along almost the entire leading edge of the wing, and when the steam condensed, the water trickled down into the collector tanks fitted at the top of the fairings of the fixed undercarriage. To increase the rate of dissipation, the outer skinning of the leading edge of the wing corrugated. Compared with what was to follow, the Type 224 was not a very refined design, neither structurally nor aerodynamically. The aircraft made its first flight in February 1934 and soon revealed a fundamental problem in using evaporative cooling in a low-winged monoplane design: engine overheating. The Type 224 Goshawk was prone to overheating due to rapid climbs to altitude, an important function for an interceptor fighter. The fighter had a top speed of only 238 miles per hour, but took 8 minutes to climb to 15,000 feet. Such shortcomings might have been acceptable if the Type 224 had a performance greatly superior to that of its competitors, but it did not. The winner of the competition was the far more robust and nimble Gloster 8837, a radial engine biplane of conventional design, which was to go into service with the RAF as the Gladiator. The SS-37 had a maximum speed of 242 miles per hour, with its rate of climb of the Gloster fighter was able to clearly demonstrate its superiority, reaching 15,000 feet in 6.5 minutes, 1.5 minutes earlier than the Type 224. After service trials at Martlesham Heath, the solo prototype went to Farnborough. It ended its days in the mid-1937 as a ground firing target on the range of Orfordness. In the meantime, however, the Supermarine design team has to show that it could produce something far better. In the summer of 1934, even as the Type 224 was undergoing its trials at Martlesham, Supreme has opened discussions with the Air Ministry regarding an improved design with better performance. The new aircraft designed, the Type 300, was to be based on the Type 224, but by cleaning up the design a little, fitting a retractable undercarriage, getting rid of the draggy corrugated wing, leading edge, and lopping more than 6 feet off the wingspan, it was estimated that the fighter's speed could be increased by 30 miles per hour to 265 miles per hour using the same Goshawk engine. Towards the end of July 1934, the proposal was submitted to the Air Ministry as Supreme Specification 425A. The Air Ministry was lukewarm towards the new proposal, which offered only a marginal increase in performance over the other fighter. Mitchell was not only put off by its rejection, however, and he and his team continued work on the further refinement of the Type 300 design. But early autumn, this was being offered as a fighter smaller, still with a wingspan of 37 feet, in a somewhat thinner wing, a faired cockpit and stressed skin construction. The engine was still to be evaporatively called Goshawk, but the top speed would be around the 280 mph mark. With a better engine, the maximum speed would be higher, and there was suggestion that the fighter should be fitted with the Napier Dagger, then in development with specifications 700 horsepower, more than 800 planned for the new models. During a meeting of the board of Vickers Ltd on November 6, 1934, the idea was tuned down in a favour of even a better engine, now in the offering, the Rolls-Royce PV-12, later named the Merlin. At this time, the PV-12 was suffering its share of teething troubles, and that was not yet ready for production. The target output for the new 27-litre engine was 1000 horsepower. During November 1934, Mitchell received permission to proceed with the design of PV-12 powered Type 300 fighter. The decision to combine the revised Type 300 airframe with the PV-12 engine drew immediate interest from the Air Ministry. On the 1st December 1934, contact AM 361140-34 was issued, providing £10,000 for the construction of the prototype fighter to Mitchell's improved F-7-30 design. The new aircraft was to be ready in October 1935. Several previous accounts have suggested that the new fighter was all throughout it's a private venture, although the documentary evidence from that time suggests that is not the case. In actually, the Type 300 with the PV-12 engines was a private venture for less than a month, ending with this issue of the Air Ministry contact on 1st of December. The contact for the new Supermarine Type 300 fighter was formalised on 3rd of January 1935, and a new Air Ministry specification F-37-34 was written around Mitchell's improved design. The specification was in fact a one short addendum to F-7-30. The larger PV-12 engine weighed about 1/3 more than the Goshawk, so to compensate for the forward shift of centre of gravity, the sweep back of the leading edge of the wing was reduced. From there, it was a short step to embody the elliptical wing, which would be the most distinctive and recognisable feature of the new fighter. The elliptical wing was aerodynamically the best option for the required purposes because introduced drag was the lowest when this shape was used while producing lift. The ellipse was ideal, theoretically perfect shape, as a straight tapered wing starts to reduce in the chord from the moment it leaves the root, and an elliptical one, on the other hand, tapers only very slowly at first, then progressively more rapidly. The ellipse was simply the shape that allowed using the thinnest possible wing with the significant room inside to carry the necessary internal structure and everything else that was to be cramped in. Specification F.37-34 had called for a fighter armed with 4 machine guns, but it was becoming clear that it was insignificant firepower to destroy the faster all-metal bombers than going into service in the several air forces. Squadron leader Ralph Sawley was in charge of the operational requirements section of the Air Ministry. At the time the F.37-34 was taking shape, he insisted that the new fighters would be armed with the new Browning gun being tested in Britain, which was offered a higher rate of fire. According to Sawley's calculations, the airspeed of these modern bombers would probably allow the pursuing fighter only one chance of attack, so it must be destroyed in the vital 2-second burst. Sawley's arguments convinced the Deputy Chief of the Air Staff, Air Vice Marshal Edgar. As a result, the main 1934 fighter specification F.5-34 called for an aircraft armed with 8 machine guns. However, the new specification had not linked to the aircraft Mitchell was working on. The specification did not affect the new Supermarine fighter was F.10-35, which asked for a fighter with at least 6 guns, though 8 was desirable. Towards the end of April 1935, Sawley paid a visit to Supermarine Works to discuss with Mitchell both his new fighter and at least the Air Ministry specification. So it was the new Supermarine fighter was brought into line with F.10-35, the argument to be 8 Vickers Mark V or Browning guns with 300 rounds of ammunition per gun. The revised contract permitted the reduction of the fuel to 75 gallons, though the actual tankage needed to be reduced unless it's necessary to do so to provide space for the guns. To Reginald Mitchell, this was an opportunity to shed 1 to 6 cubic feet of volume from the engine area and glassbat it. The prototype of the new fighter was fitted with the tanks for only 75 gallons of fuel. In June 1935, a 1 to 24 scale model of the F.37-34 fighter, it was newly referred to as the F.10-35 even after it had been altered to confirm its specification, underwent wind tunnel tests at Farnborough to determine its spinning characteristics. In the middle of 1935, the design of the F.37-34 fighter was still unsound in one of the important aspects. Its PV-12 engine was still to be evaporative cooling, and this, as it was seen, could not be made to work properly on low-winged monoplane. Mitchell was redundant to resort to the more conventional forms of external radiators, which would considerably increase drag for the new fighter. In retrospect, the problem of the engine cooling might seem only a trivial part of the story, but as it stood, it can only lead to the downfall of the fighter. When the Merlin, as known as the PV-12 was now named, was running at full power, it produced 12,500 centigrade heat units of excess heat each minute, the equivalent of 401 kilowatt electric fans running simultaneously. About 90% of the heat had been removed by the liquid cooling system, the remainder by the oil cooler. Fortunately, at this time, Fred Murdiff at Farnborough had been conducting some experiments which showed that a new type of ducted radiator could solve the problem. In Murdiff's radiator, the air entered from the front through a duct hose cross-sectional area, progressively winded to reduce its velocity, therefore increase pressure. The slightly compressed air then passed through a matrix of the radiator where it was heated and so expanded, then it passed through a Dover duct at the rear which caused an increase in velocity of airflow. Thus the ducted radiator acted rather like a ramjet. The ram was compressed, heated and then expelled from the rear, increased velocity to produce thrust. The amount of thrust produced by the ducted radiator was small and only under optimum conditions would exceed drag, although compared to alternate cooling systems, Murdiff's design was greatly superior. The efficiency of the cooling system was further improved by the use of ethane, which had a boiling point considerably higher than what of water as the coolant. This meant that the radiator could be run much more hotter and considerably necessarily heat. This operation could be accomplished with a smaller and lighter radiator holding less coolant. It was also found that the ethane system could be built for between a third and a half of the weight of an equivalent water cooling system. Reginald Mitchell knew a good idea when he saw them, as it physically incorporated the new cooling system into his fighter. By August 1935, the design saw alterations in several key aspects, from F.37-34 submission at the beginning of the year, although the external appearance of the aircraft has changed relatively little. The revised design are now carried out 8 guns instead of 4, no bombs, tankage for 75 gallons of fuel instead of 94, a slightly longer fuselage and a raised tailplane, a wing increased dihedral and duct radiator in place of the evaporative cooling. Work had begun to cut the metal that would transform the nice design into what's hoped to be a successful aircraft. Hello guys, and thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you guys have learned a lot about the Iconic Spitfire and the birth of the English version. Don't forget, this is the first video of the series of the Spitfire Ground School, so don't forget to go check out our lovely videos. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and comment if you have any questions and anything you'd like to say. Other than that, everybody, have an amazing day and see you in the next one.